We are Mortgage Pros 411. I am Audrey Boissonou. This is Kevin Cassey, and we are joined today by, hang on, Goran Stijacic.
Very close. Good enough. Good enough. Thank you. Thank you for the effort, Audrey.
Okay, say it right.
Stijacic.
I had it perfect when we were practicing earlier.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Easier than I'm making it, I think. Anyway, Goran is with Cimmaron software, and he and I I'm not sure what he would call it. So a couple of years ago, we had both
friendship.
Deep friendship. Okay. So we had both gotten on an airplane. Well, he was on the airplane. I had gotten home from Europe the night before and had to fly to San Diego and missed my flight. Had to rebook on a totally different airline, the whole bit. So I managed to get on this flight, and poor Goran is sitting in the seat thinking he's going to sleep going to San Diego, which he tells me, by the way, "Hi, how are you? Oh, I'm great. Da, da, da. I'm just coming back from Europe. This is Goran. He's on his last leg." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I just got back last night." He goes, "I'm planning to sleep all the way to San Diego." I said, "No, you can't do that. If you go to sleep now, you're going to have jet lag."
So aggressive.
Till tonight. And that's how this friendship began. Me bossing him around right out of the gate.
True
and then
story. It's been years of abuse since then.
And did you suffer from jet lag when you got back?
Oh, if I had slept, I would have been in much better mood.
I met his lovely wife and children at the airport. They literally got out of the car and came in to get him. So if that tells you anything about this man, his family loves him, which speaks highly of someone. So just a couple things before we get off and running. We have a Fed meeting going on, and tomorrow we will have the Fed meeting will end. And then guess what always happens? They say some stuff and poof, there goes the market. So watch it. It could go one way. It could go either way. Honestly, it's a total crapshoot at this point, because based on the last 11 days or so of crazy mayhem in the banking system, the expectations for a Fed rate hike have changed, right? So we've gone from, oh yeah, definitely at least a half, to now, maybe a quarter, and maybe they'll moderate their statements. We'll see, but they don't always seem to be in touch.
I find it interesting that they've gone from saying whether it'll be a smooth landing or a rough landing to maybe it might be a crash landing.
Wait, they said that? I missed it. I mean, so they managed to navigate crash landings always.
Crash landing. They do more crash landings than anything else. So
I think the number of soft landings are at least 0 or 1 in the history of recessions, perhaps. So anyway, so there you go. So someone just posted that there are audio issues.
I can hear you fine. You can hear me fine.
Well, somebody else chime in if there's an issue. Okay. So here's some good news too. So do you remember at the beginning of the year when the NBA came out and said, hey, first quarter is going to suck? Basically, they didn't quite say it like that, but that was the gist of it. But it should get better in second quarter, which obviously, because it's going to be spring, so no matter what, you would think it would get better in second quarter, but second quarter is less than 2 weeks away. We made it through Q1, people, of 2023. Now, it is mayhem all over the place right now. However, it is going to get better. It is, but you have to focus on purchases. So Goran and I had originally spoken about him talking about data and tech, and how does that impact your business, and why is that important? And so he was a little surprised when he saw the title today that said he would be explaining how his CRM crashed the banking system. So
that was pretty shocking.
So why don't you tell us, how did that happen?
Well, my powers are vast. I mean, my software and tech industry in general has caused all grief for you people. So thank you for inviting me. I'm very comfortable right now.
The timing is impeccable.
Great ambush journalism on your part. Can you make me look good?
Yeah, well, it'll take a bit to do that, but we're going to work on that right now. So I told Goran about my email problem that I had, that I think I've shared, where I have 3 email boxes. One of them had almost 29,000 unread emails. And when I dove into it, it had like almost 90,000 emails in it. It's now down to less than 200. And that one's under control. And I have 2 others that I'm tackling and working on right now. So again, if I haven't responded to your email, now you know why. But he had this great email tip that he wanted to share with us. So, Goran, your strategy for minimizing emails is?
Well, it depends. What did I tell you, Audrey? You should really,
Well, what you said is that if you want to have less emails, then you have to be an unbearable jerk so no one wants to know you.
that is for personal relationships, Audrey, for personal relationships.
All right, well,
Business relationships, I'm always very nice.
Okay, just a reminder that we have the NAM-led conference coming up April 14th through the 18th. It's not, you don't have to be there for that entire time. It's in Washington, D.C. I think that's obvious, but we'll just say it again. But just if you can join us, we would love it, because you'll be hearing from a lot of good speakers, from some of the Congress people, heads of the banking committees that actually really form what we do in our industry. So be part of it if you can. I just dropped something. Please hold.
This is regular live TV,
I know. It just is what it is, people. You know what I mean? All right. So with that being said, Goran, let's talk about why we should even pay attention to tech, data, CRMs. Why do they matter in this environment or any environment?
Well, I think why does it matter? I think, for technology, it allows you to handle more volume and allows you to reach out and hopefully capture a larger market share when you have diminishing kind of returns on your investment. So I think that's really, technology is not there for technology's sake, just, oh, I should use it. If you're doing fine with a particular market niche, you shouldn't burden yourself with going out and trying to just implement it so you can say you have it. And that's true whether you're an individual producer or large enterprise that we deal with. If it works, that's great. You don't need to just have it to have it. But the reality is that there is a smaller pool of credit-worthy borrowers out there, and finding those people requires more effort. So, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it's like panning for gold. It's fine. You can go in the stream. But now you have to have a little bit larger equipment. You have to process more leads, referral partners, real estate agents, more calls. And it's very hard to be systematized and organized without a help of some kind of tool and a proper sales structure and methodology. So that's really where technology by itself is not a solution or a panacea. A lot of it is just kind of fly by night or, just a emotionally driven marketing that just gives you, makes you feel good. The primary focus is, how do I take my 100 realtor agents, referral partners, and turn that into 500, working with all of them, but at least people that you are slowly bringing online. Some will fall off, some will retire, new ones need to come on board. And it's very hard to do that, to follow up 3, 4, 5 months into the future on a consistent basis if you have to memorize that, or you have to do it in Excel, or you do it in multiple places. And then for larger companies, it's very hard to manage a sales floor and see what's working, what kind of marketing, advertising, and all of that, if you don't have a continuous analytics through a span of time. And that's really what technology is. If you're thinking about it, those are the reasons why you'd want to look to adopt it, to make yourself better over a period of time.
I love your comment on the real estate agents getting out of the business, because it's something that if you don't plan for, it can really smack you. I remember, I think it was like 2005 or so, I had 2 of my top real estate agents pass away in the same year. I had another 2 retire, and it was like, holy moly, it was just like, and I had just a handful of good realtors that, were sending me regular business, and that just, wiped out that year. So it's always good to have bring in new realtors into the business. It's either that or keep them alive. I don't know. Stop saying donuts. I don't know. But
well, and if I can speak for airy-fairy loan officers everywhere, I am reforming myself, because I used to really be, oh, my business is referral and I don't need to do any outreach. It's just going to come to me. And if we're supposed to work together, we'll work together. And I just want you to, I'm just assuming Goran is sitting there cringing on the inside thinking, are you out of your effing mind?
That is not what I was thinking. Oh,
Uh,
no profanity.
it's got to be close. I know it's close. And I am recognizing that if we as loan officers don't embrace this technology, we're going to be obsolete like in 13 seconds. Seriously. It is happening whether we want it to or not. And so if you're not embracing this technology, your competitors are 100%. And if you want to just fade into the sunset, it's fine. So I've talked to some loan officers who are like, well, I'm just scaling back and I'm just going to take incoming calls and that's it. And then when that stops, it stops. And if that's where you are, okay, no problem. But if you think you're going to have a business in the next 6 months, year, 5 years, you got to get on board with some of it and at least start the process of systematizing, which is why I started with, I need to get my emails under control. I need to figure out who my people really are. I need to have some systems that which I'm working on, and it takes some time. Like it doesn't happen overnight, but I'm working on it. And so I'm so far ahead of where I was a month ago. I have a ways to go, but I'm getting there. So
And
I have,
someone
go ahead.
like you, Audrey, that has a lot of knowledge and competency to give. You have to find a way to share that with the world. And if you're not good, you'll fade away anyway. But you can also fade away if nobody knows about you.
Right.
I mean, eventually, every client you have, every relationship you have is on some kind of clock. For whatever reasons, like what you were saying, Kevin, people retire or they die. I mean, it's not often, but there is an end to it. It happens, and you have to build towards kind of future. And you have to understand that there's, if the industry shrinks, that means less people are going to be employed in it. And if you're not a person who is moving above that line, then maybe that's okay. Like you were saying, there's a lot of people that are just kind of scaling down. They've done really well, and not everybody's. These are just individual decisions. But as an industry, as maybe sales leaders in organizations, or maybe even as individual producers or branch managers, these are issues that you have to grapple with as you move from more of a kind of individual loan officer producer to more of an organizational model where you can have people nurturing the leads, or you have the marketing system, or you're allocating your sales funnel money and seeing how it's giving you the return on investment. And it can't just be throwing it against, it can. In 2020, you could do whatever you want. I mean, it was just, I need to tell you, it was insane. Yeah, it's fine. But that's not how most industries are. My industry is not like that. We have to be very systematized. Our sales staff has to have processes in place. They have to follow up with people. It takes us about a year to close a sales cycle.
Wow.
I'm sure for you, it takes a long time for a real estate agent to develop that relationship. You have a successful real estate agent, I'm guessing they're getting knocks on their door all year long from your colleagues. So, following through and follow up and all of that is more important to their $1 million SoCal deal than a box of cookies. Not that that's not important, but these are the kind of tools that you have to deploy. So when you get in the morning, you know what you're doing that day.
That's right. And so structure really is part of the equation. And you had made the comment, sales is a process, not an event. And that is true for all of us. How many of us have had clients, and myself included for sure, who we talked to about refinancing or buying a house, and then for whatever reason, and there are a million of them, that didn't happen in the moment. Well, have we circled back? Do we even remember who they are? That was one of the things about going through my email where I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know who that is. Like literally, I have no idea who that is. And I'm looking at the conversation and it looks like I do them. I mean, it's crazy.
Right.
So
you look pretty personal conversation you had.
Exactly. But I wasn't tracking, and that's not good. We can't do that. So you had also made the comment that if you have a decrease of 50% in volume, it requires 100% increase in effort.
Right.
So if you want to even come close to where we were in the last few years, we got to double up. Right?
Yes, exactly. And so you kind of the two problems you have there, I'm glad you brought that up. You have, let's say you are making 100 emails, text messages, phone calls, visits, whatever it is that your mix of sales efforts is, and they gave you 10 loans. Now that's only giving you 5 loans. Well, that means you have to double that to 200 to get back to 10. Now, there's also a limit to that. Limit as a sales organization, you can't just drive your people more because you have to yield more per hour worked. And we have a client that, they were doing 40 loans a month with a bank. They did 3 last month. Now, they cannot possibly do a 200 times more volume in calls and all of that. They just can't. They're not going to work 24/7. So they have to be more strategic. They have to look at their existing data. They have to plan for the future. They have to look at the realtors that they have, maybe insurance agents, whatever that is. So you have to be smarter about the opportunities that you have, and that's driven by your existing data. And you have to be more, you have to work harder. You have to make more efforts per unit of time.
Right.
Or you need to get your, practice, but also you need to get your referral sources to work harder also, apparently.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah. Well,
do.
you know what? I spent 4 days recently in a little seminar, and I literally calling people and lighting fires under their tails. I'm like, look, this is not working because we got really comfortable during COVID and lockdown, right? So everyone went home, everyone stopped bathing, everyone stopped wearing real clothes, they stopped putting on makeup or doing their hair or doing whatever, or wearing high heel shoes. That was a funny thing when we all started like venturing out in the world, and the women posting comments about how their feet were just not up to it anymore. But whatever your situation was, we got comfortable. It was a tough time, but it was also a time where you just sort of relaxed into your house and what feels good, because there was so much that didn't feel good. But guess what, people? We don't grow or succeed in anything by being comfortable. You have to push yourself. So again, for me, I am leading by example. Gosh darn it, I am pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I've never been one to track, to do any of that stuff, and I am absolutely setting up systems right now. So tell us how that works within a CRM. So, I mean, do you tell people how often should I call someone? Like, do you give them suggestions? Do they figure that out on their own? How does that work?
Okay, well, that's an awesome question. Obviously has.
Thanks, Goran.
I mean, that's why it's just one after the other, Audrey.
Oh my God,
crazy.
I'll keep coming. Just hang in there.
Yeah. So how does that work? I mean, there's kind of 2 things that you are managing there. One is what we talked about, increasing your volume, and the second one is that cost of contact. And by cost, it might mean actual physical, money, monetary cost. It could be time. It's a lot easier to call people than people you don't know. Like when we call a person, right? Our sales staff picks up the phone, calls Audrey, says, "Hey, Audrey, would you like to know?" Click. I mean, that's usually, nobody says, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you called the first time." But it doesn't happen.
I've been waiting for your phone
Yeah,
call.
I've been waiting for you, Goran, to call me. So, where do I send the check? No, it's so that cost of contact goes down. And if you develop those relationships, those subsequent calls, subsequent interactions are a lot easier. So what happens is you kind of have the backwards looking and the forwards looking. Backwards looking is your data. What did you do, right? You import that data in and you get trained. It's a process like any other, like joining a gym and all of that. It's not something you turn on overnight and then tomorrow it sends out a bunch of spam and whoa, here comes just,
Right.
Everybody's one. So it's a process. So you have to understand, what are you doing? What are you working with? If you're a brand new loan officer, then you might be working more towards, trying to get leads. Maybe you're purchasing leads. Maybe you're moving towards a more aggressive sales to build your book of business. Or if you're somebody like you who's established all those emails that you've deleted, that you've had, that you haven't responded, if you went through those and send them an email today, if you had them in some system, they would be much more amenable to contacting you. So that's kind of looking back. You company like ours will take a look and say, all right, your branch has, or your company has, or whatever the situation is, let's import that data, let's look at it. And then you have a combination of a sales process and technology. We don't do the sales process because it's so varied, and we work on software selling that, but we know kind of from 20 years of doing this, what works for people, how they can get loan officers to do stuff and what they won't get away with, texting follow-ups and all that. And then that sales process, you have some sales leader in every organization who can help set that up and can help slowly build competency in use of technology, follow-ups, texting, emails, automated birthdays. You might start with like, let's send birthdays and newsletters.
Mhm.
Then you will get that thank you for my happy birthday. Great. And now you've got a conversation going. So that's kind of going forward. So those are the two parts, looking at your data and then approaching your organizational sales methodology in a systematic fashion.
Okay, so let's stop there for 1 second because I just want to
Mhm.
say two things. First of all, the birthday emails are really funny to me because I have a certain number of people who are in a system that does send out happy birthday, da 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 da
Mhm.
da. Great. And occasionally I'm realizing people respond to those. Oh my goodness,
Absolutely.
are you kidding me? And so
Mhm.
then that's the opportunity. Just, if we're doing emailing birthday messages for dummies right now, I am on the list. You're supposed to respond back and say, how are you doing?
Absolutely.
I mean, this is your introduction. This is your way to be talking to them and reminding them that you're a real human. Okay, I kind of missed that little detail. So it's
Absolutely. You're
really
so right.
important.
We will go through sometimes, and help our clients to say, look, here's your loan officers. They have, 22 responses to different things that were, text messages that went out that are just unresponded to. Somebody says, great, hey, happy birthday. Thank you so much. And then it's a way to engage this person. You should never leave it unresponded.
Right.
But people do. The point is not to wish them a happy birthday. I mean, maybe you do, maybe birthday kind of person, great, good for you. But the point is to engage them, to be there and nurture that relationship at low cost. So you don't have to, because you want to get 1,000, 1,500, 10,000 previous clients in an automatic kind of, maybe once a year, you expend effort on these, annual mortgage review calls or whatever that is. Maybe it's once a quarter, but the rest of the time you're sending different newsletters, conversation pieces, text messages, nothing spectacular, but just that you're there, you're still in business. People are not going to get a newsletter from you and go, oh my God, rhubarb pie. This is just, I was waiting for this to purchase my home.
I know.
But
Yeah.
but they will know you when they want to. They'll say, "Oh yeah, I remember. It's Audrey. Let me email her." So
Yeah.
that's what a technology does. Keeps that, but then you have to use it. It can't be out. There's many services that are automatic out there, but they don't yield anything because it goes nowhere. People
Mhm.
think they'll do the service and then apply now button gets clicked. But maybe, I mean,
That was
again,
2020,
yeah,
2021.
maybe.
That is not 2023. And we need to really embrace that because it's our reality now. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are salespeople. I never wanted
Yeah.
to admit that. I never wanted to admit that because I thought this shouldn't be sales. We're helping people. Well, okay,
That's what
that's
sales is.
100% true. We are helping people, and that should be our focus. But ultimately, we are salespeople. Even I've had to embrace that idea,
Yeah.
as hard as it
I mean,
was.
I feel very happy with hundreds and thousands, millions of different touch points, probably tens of millions my software has done on behalf of our clients. Our sales staff is salespeople. They're selling a valuable product. They're not selling, whatever, some scam stuff in Nigeria, prints and all of that. There's nothing wrong. It's the product that's good. Your product is a good product.
Yeah.
People have a home, and there's nothing wrong reaching out and saying, you know what, I've been in business for 10 years. Trust me, I can do this for you. You're helping your client pick the right person by making that effort. If you are that person, they should know that. It's
Also,
nothing.
I was going to add is just because you're not hearing back from people doesn't mean you're not making a point of contact that they enjoy.
Exactly.
A lot of us think that if I send them a postcard or something that they just throw in the mail and they're mad at me, like, oh,
No,
I
no,
remove it. And I had this experience just recently. Audrey knows about that, but so I was in touch with a cousin and I would send them, letters and postcards, and I never heard back, never.
Mhm.
And then, I was just settling their estate and going through it. They kept all of my stuff, even though I never heard back.
Well, just to be
kept it.
clear, they didn't just keep his letters. They did a little something else too.
Yeah, well, they kind of left the house to me, so that was kind of sweet too.
Literally left him a house. So yeah, double
Who,
up on the birthday
what
message,
family?
people.
Reaching out to people can
what
help
family
you a lot.
members? Who are your family members I should be sending postcards
I
to?
know, right?
Because I will spam
I
them.
wasn't sending postcards. They were getting letters. But
Oh, I will write every day.
yeah,
Exactly. But we just were talking recently about the monkey chimp survey that was done, and emails is literally the least effective form of communication, but it's the base for a relationship where you keep in touch. Hey, here I am, and then you follow up with the means that are more impactful, like make a phone call on top of it, that kind of thing. And we have a comment from Jill who says that the birthday messages are an absolutely door opening exercise, because
all of you.
and that you don't have to call on the birthday. You could follow up the day after, the day after that too.
Actually,
That
I
works
love.
for her.
I got to get back to doing my Thanksgiving cards. They were probably one of my best things. And I would just send them something regarding, like a thought for the day for Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And it was just one of the things I always do, because everyone sends out Christmas cards and you get deluge, but not a lot of people send out Thanksgiving cards.
Mhm.
Or Ramadan cards. I've never gotten a Ramadan card, so I'm going to work on that too. Okay, so let's talk about leads for a moment, just because
Yeah.
this is something that's so foreign to me. So I've learned a lot about it in the last couple of years, just hearing about it, not experiencing it. But I know you have a lot of experience with leads and the
Mhm.
process necessary to make those work. People think, oh, I can just buy a lead list and I'm going to get all these loans. And it's not quite like, tell us how that works.
Okay, well, so it depends
Yes.
what it is that you are working with. Now, everything really that you guys deal with in the mortgage industry or when so is a lead, right? Even, I mean, maybe your parents will not go somewhere else, but the time clicks, somebody fills out your referral you receive, there's a time to respond. That time might be measured in hours or maybe a couple of days, but you're supposed to respond quickly, and the quicker usually the better. As you start moving into the more anonymous or purchase leads like Zillow or LendingTree and all of that, those are valuable sources of business. They are not, those people also need a home. These are not, you're not looking for people who are trying to convince people to buy something they don't want. They are trying to buy a home. However, your process for purchasing those leads, if it's not on point, you are just wasting money. And we're talking, it can be down to seconds. So when you buy a Zillow lead, they might sell that. I mean, every lead is sold multiple times. That everybody knows. The first person to contact, or the first legitimate looking person to contact, is usually the one that will get the business, because that loan officer will say, hello, my name is Audrey, blah, blah, blah. I'll be your loan officer. Please do me a favor. Anybody else calls you, there's a lot of scammers out there. Don't pick up your call, right? They'll immediately try to, if they're smart, cut that off and move forward. So if you're calling 7 minutes later or 3 minutes later, you might be too late. Again, it's not always the case, but this is that lead process. If you're looking to get into it, you have to have a system that captures that lead and within seconds has sent out an email, sent out a text message, introducing yourself, saying, my name is Audrey, I'll be contacting you, and has that call scheduled for you to call them. Depending how aggressive you are, if you're a single person doing it, it's hard because you might be on the call, you cannot get off the call. But if you got a team, maybe you got a 1 or 2 persons doing just the telemarketing portion of it, taking those inbounds, making that warm introduction, transferring it to a loan officer. But that is also a process like any other. So like you said, people buy leads and they spend $200, $300, maybe it's $150, maybe it's $400 per lead. And then they call them, comes to their email, their lunch, they get up back and they call and they're like, hey, these are not working. But they do work. You just have to be incredibly efficient, quick. You have to route. In the large organizations, you've got all different licensures. You got whose license is expired, whose is not. Is it a VA? Is it all different lead distribution rules. And then on the management side, you want to be fair, because usually it's the company, not the LO, that purchases leads. So you want to distribute fairly. Sometimes it's as simple as round robin. Sometimes it's, for who contacted the most. Sometimes it is, you got a lead, it's been 5 minutes, you've done nothing. You don't get another lead for the rest of the day. But that's okay. Not everybody can operate in that environment, but there's people that operate well in that environment, and you can build a great sales strategy with that then feeds into your long-term nurture organizational path. So it's not an either or thing, but it is, if you're kind of individual loan producers in a branch that always did their own thing, probably not for you. But if you have good technology and good system of follow-up and accountability, then you can do that. And getting that down into seconds, if you're purchasing it, is very, very important.
So let me just be clear. Are there any successful buyers of leads who don't have it systematized and down to a science?
No, I mean, no, it's just, we'll sometimes help, run into people who have attempted it, but no, if you're, I mean, again, I'm not saying that there's nobody out there who hasn't, maybe their brand name recognition, maybe they have in that community, they have a strong, but usually these are anonymous leads. Stuff that you buy on the internet is people from all over the world, all over the United States looking for somebody. So it's very important to be, if you don't have a system for that, that's your first step. Get that organized and then pilot it out for maybe 90 days. You're going to buy maybe 10 leads a day, 5 leads a day, because it's expensive. Then you're going to run credit. Because obviously these should be very qualified leads. So when you get them, you might be running credit. That's now $100. So you're looking at a serious outlay of cash. And then you got to measure your close rate. How good are your people closing those leads? What's your margin? If your margin's $2,000 per loan, $200 a lead, that means you need 10 or less leads, 1 in 10 to just break even. Those are the kind of numbers you got to.
A great line before you drop the $100 on the credit report, and that is, hey, part of the process is for me is to pull your credit. Can you tell me what surprises I'm gonna see when I pull your credit?
Great idea. Yep.
And they'll be like, oh no, there's nothing, no surprises, or oh yeah, there's this, and then wait a minute, before I've wasted my money on this, let's dig into what there's going on in their credit, and maybe you cut it off right then and there.
One of the things that I love that you said that I think is important is that when you're talking to them in that first conversation, let them know that they're going to get these phone calls from these scammers, from these, well, we call them trigger leads. And just for the record, NAM is about to drop a trigger lead bill again. And
define drop, by the way, because it sounds like they're dropping it, letting it go.
Introduce it into
introducing it to Congress.
Introducing a bill in Congress to help with some of that, because there are scammers out there. They are abusing that system. It is not okay. So I read that the average loss on a loan that's being originated right now is some crazy number like $2,812 for each loan that an independent mortgage bank is originating. They're losing $2,812. Now, I have 3 calls out to find out why in the world anyone's in business as an independent mortgage bank, if that's the case. There's more to it than that, I know. But we are seeing an environment where technology, and the cost keeps going up, and up. And technology is expensive. Every bit of this is expensive. How do we deal with that? Like, why? I mean, is there a tipping point where the technology is going to finally get us to the other side where it's going to be less expensive? Because originators aren't making more than they used to. So where is that cost coming from? Do you have any idea? I'm kind of throwing this at you, so.
Not from my company, I would just say that, but
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, we knew that, of course.
No, but actually, that is a valid point. Most of our clients, especially the new ones, have this what's called like a tech stack of doom or tech stack from hell, and it's usually a lot of the technology tools that our clients use are used as a recruitment and inducement tool to hire loan officers, because a big way to build business, right? You can kind of build it 2 ways. You can hire a person who brings their own book of business, or you can develop in-house your, whether it be software sales or loan officers or whatever it is, right? So as you try to attract this talent, you bring all these technology solutions as an inducement, as a benefit, like Friday morning bagels, right? Unfortunately, with software, what happens is all of these systems are separate. They might synchronize data back and forth somewhat, but the more you have them, the less value there is in each one, because you can't always know what we call single source of truth. So the budget continues to expand, and each company likes to kind of just do a little thing. So they're not responsible for thinking through the whole process. And that's why, you know, we have it's a lengthy onboarding process in a sense to really capture the entire value, but everybody has to be involved to organize how the sales process works, not just piecemeal tools. And that's a lot of that cost bloat comes from using a bunch of different tools and then having to hire companies to clean that data, or your internal IT departments. And you can never answer simple questions like, well, how many, you know, what was our marketing? How many loans did we get from marketing last year? Or if we advertise, like, how well are we doing? And they'll give you clicks. They'll say, well, you know, we had this campaign, whatever, 20,000 clicks and this many, you know, over the past 12 months. But how many loans? Like how many, I mean, okay, clicks are fine, but what does it translate into loans? But that system doesn't have loan data.
Yeah.
Because it's not a CRM. And then you have a lot of spent money and wasted money. So that's where a lot of the IT costs go. And, you know, the users themselves don't use it, the data becomes stale, and that's one of the problems.
That's interesting. Well, and it actually speaks to, I sat at a meeting not too long ago where they were like, oh, and we have all of this. These were all these different options of things that we should be using in our businesses. And honestly, at the end of it, my head was spinning. I didn't even know where to start. And I did, let's go with 0. And so you really, it's sort of like going to the gym. You cannot say, I'm going to go to the gym. I've never gone to the gym before, but now I'm going to do it 7 days a week. I'm going to work out for 2.5 hours and I'm going to, you know, do X, Y. No, you have to say, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm committing to once a week. I'm going to get on the treadmill. I'm going to stay there for at least 5 minutes. Make the bar low enough that you can actually start. Because starting is the hardest part, just like with anything, right? So pick a program that you're going to focus on so you can master it and get it under your belt and then move on to the next one. Or I know that you are constantly looking at ways to take your software and grow it so that it does encompass more and more of the process.
Because the more unified the software is, the better use of it. And, you know, there's two sides to it. One is the individual's desire to learn. Some people don't want to learn, and that's okay. They'll not be able to maintain their pace.
Not okay. Let me just dive right in. It used to be okay, not okay anymore. Even I've had to understand that. Not okay. Okay, keep going.
So that's, you know, when sometimes people say, well, you know, is this technology complicated? And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is if your competitors are using it. So if they're using it and deriving value out of it, you got to get on board. You know, it's like your fighter jet looks complicated. I mean, but you still don't give people swords to go fight. You're like, no, you got to learn how to operate a jet. And then the second thing is that inside the organization, there has to be a system of training people. You know, it has to be helping them understand how to develop their desk. And here's your desk. And it may be, you know, as industry has transitioned, it's transitioning now from this kind of independent model into more an employer-employee model. Like in California, right? I mean, it's pretty much you got to get minimum wage, which is kind of done as a draw, I think, in most companies. But nonetheless, it used to be an employee cost, an LO cost. But now it's not nothing. Now a loan officer has a significant organizational cost in, you know, quite a few places. So it behooves you to invest in an entire kind of, you know, what is it, curb to close process of how that's going to work. And that's another aspect of, you know, organization that needs to implement, and the loan officers need to look for those kind of companies too.
Right. Well, it's hard to do it on your own these days, that's for sure. So whatever your structure is, you got to figure out how to make it work within this environment that we're in, whether you like it or not. So I just found the number. So for Q4, the loss for an independent mortgage, the average loss, not everyone's loss, the average loss across the industry for an independent mortgage bank, which is your wholesalers, it's all sorts of companies, right? It's not just one model or the next. So they lost on average $2,812 per loan. And that was up from Q3, where they lost $624 a loan. It's a really significant difference.
Are
And
they
so
losing that in operate? I don't know if they're losing that in
per loan,
operations, or
per
they're
loan,
losing it a sale of those securities because of the interest rate.
yeah, well,
devaluing.
yeah, and the cost per loan has gone, the cost per loan is like
Mhm.
off the charts. So it's like $12,000 on average to originate a loan these days, which is nuts. And so again, that's why I'm like, okay, at what point can we get the cost down? It's crazy. On that note, it reminds me of the CFPB for some reason. I don't know why. So I had heard rumblings about this. They're looking at the LO comp rule. So I called my favorite buddy at the CFPB just to get the straight scoop of them. And he clarified they're not looking at LO comp because they want to attack it or do something different. They are required to review their rules every 10 years or so. So that is all this is. It's just a review. And they're looking for public comment. And that public is us, right? And what they want to know, how is it working? So this is what we don't need to have happen. Please do not send them comments that say LO comp is stupid or we have too much regulation, it should all go away. That is not helpful, okay? Even if that's what you think, don't say it because it's pointless. What they're looking for is insight into how it's hurting the consumer ultimately. So how is it impacting your business? If you're a broker and the LO comp rule is impacting your business, how can they improve it? What should be shifted, right? And maybe you talk about the 3% rule, which is so tough to keep your costs contained in that 3% rule, especially with certain loan amounts, et cetera. When we have fixed costs like appraisals, et cetera, that are not going to get better or worse, depending, you know what I mean? Like that cost is a cost no matter what the loan amount is. So they're looking for suggestions to improve. He sent me the link. We'll embed it in the YouTube channel so you can find it. So just know that you'll find it there later. And also, I just wanted to point out that even though thank you, FHFA did delay the implementation of the DTI LLPA. So for DTIs over 40, there was going to be a hit. It was supposed to go into effect May 1st. They've delayed it, but they've delayed it. And they've only delayed it
until
August.
They've delayed it.
Huh?
They have not canceled it. They've just delayed it.
Thank you. Yes, they have not. And there isn't a lot of people are not feeling warm and fuzzy about them actually getting rid of it all the way. So when you see calls for input from us, you got to answer. You got to give them because as an industry, we don't want it to be delayed. We want it to go away. Like it needs to go away. And so just be on the lookout for that. We'll keep you posted as we see things coming up. Okay.
We also have a little thing that came out now with the I just said now, what was I just told you?
I don't know.
FHFA. There we go. You can no longer do a cash out refinance either on an owner occupied or a non-owner occupied within the first year after title has been changed. So including a purchase, but if someone's added the title, you have a 12-month waiting period before you can do a cash out refinance through Fannie or Freddie. And that's effective April 1st. So that's already starting to kick in with all the lenders because they won't have the loans delivered by April 1st.
Okay, let me just tell you the upside of that. No EPOs, right?
No EPOs,
It'll
yeah.
minimize your EPOs. Your early payoff penalties are going to be diminished because they won't do it. I mean, we could fix the EPO problem if they just change the seasoning requirements, for God's sake. It's so simple in my mind, right? So anyway, there you go. So I thought it was interesting because there is this conversation that's happening right now about changing the amount of money that's insured in an FDIC insured account from $250,000 to something else. Some people are saying unlimited, blah, blah, blah. But we've seen what?
Oh, no, I had more to add. You keep going.
Okay, so we've seen them bail, like a few banks get bailed out, right? SVB got bailed out, First Republic, Credit Suisse. Although the valuation on Credit Suisse, which was like a 166-year-old company, it went from being, I mean, it ended up being transferred for was just a small fraction of what the
$1.
valuation was before.
$1.
But it was interesting because I saw Janet Yellen speaking about this because she was being asked, all right, so you bailed out these places. How about is everyone going to get bailed out? Are all those? And basically she said, we're going to pick and choose. So the answer is, it is not across the board, at least not right now.
Yeah,
And
it's a problem. And I had a conversation, Lauren, you'll appreciate this one. This was from a venture capitalist. And had the conversation over the weekend with them. They had $1.2 billion in SVB, unsecured, uninsured. And here's the crazy part. They still have a lot of money there. They cannot get it out fast enough. The big banks cannot react the way that venture capitalists need them to react. And they're saying, we're kind of stuck. We either have First Republic or SVB. Those are the only two banks that can accommodate what we do for a business. And this is a venture capital company. Because if those two companies go away, venture capital goes away.
Well, that's I think I have a little bit different look on that, just so you know. I think one of the great—
hang on, people, hang on.
So one of the great drawbacks to easy low
money.
interest rates have, there's good. I think, people are buying homes, all this great. You raise your family and all of that. There's also a lot of negative sides to it. And some of the negative sides have been in our industry. The glut of easy money has created massive overinvestment and overproduction of garbage in our industry. So we've been in business since '99 and kind of went through .com and the first recession.
Yeah.
And we have never had any kind of investment. All our companies entirely sales driven. And when you have a company, a technology company, these venture capitals that invest, a lot of it is great software, obviously a hot bit of innovation, so I don't want to discount that. But it's also, when they look for clients, a big part of their client development is increasing their valuation to their next round of investors. So a company like mine has a little bit different, and this is not wrong. I mean, they have an obligation towards the investors. I'm not like discounting. I'm just saying there's a different look to it. So if you have a company that has a massive investment in cash, those investors, it's fair that they get paid back. So their interest in explosively growing and being aggressive and discounts and all that might not always align with your long-term desire to make that software an appreciating asset, because you're an asset to them, not as a paying client, but as a brand that increases their valuation. So for our industry, it's a kind of two-edged sword, and something for our clients to consider when they're selecting vendors is, how can this vendor partner with them to bring more value to the entire value chain, as opposed to how can they get a good deal? How can they get a massive discount? Because they're happy to give you a discount, but then a year later, you're changing again, you're switching. So there's a massive amount of investment-backed companies that are not possible in a high interest rate environment. And they're under huge pressure right now because they're not driven by sales. And some of the investors that are invested in these banks, if you have sales and you're a profitable company, I can change banks easily. The money will continue coming to a different bank. I don't need a bunch of millions of dollars to pay payroll because my clients pay for my employees' payroll. So, it's just something to keep in mind, a little insight maybe into an industry that is different than yours.
Yeah, it's very different. I just also want to throw out, because existing home sales came in much better in February than they were expecting. It was up 14.5%. And again, these are from lows, but it is a shift. So 4.58 million units were closed versus the 4.2 million that they expected. It's shifted the amount of purchases that were down year over year. And again, they were expecting a 5%. They were expecting it to be much, much worse than that. Supply is up. So that you see these headlines that say the inventory levels are really high. Oh my God, oh my God. But again, they're up 15%, but it's only from like super low lows. So we are currently at inventory levels of 2.6 months versus the 4.6 that is normal, that is healthy for a healthy market. So we are way under. So there is no oversupply at all market. We're 34 days on the market on average. 57% of the properties are sold in less than 30 days. That's huge.
Wow.
And just to recap, just because we do this every month when these numbers come out, first-time home buyers are now 37% of the market, 31%, sorry, up from 27%, 31%. Cash buyers are 28%, down from 29%. That's a good thing. Investors are 18% of the market, from 16%. It's 1 in 5 deals are investors. And when I'm talking to reps out there, guess what they're getting? They're getting non-owner deals. Investors are stepping up. And by the way, some of the FinTech companies and the iBuyers, et cetera, they're backing off and the mom and pops are stepping in. So get into that business. Make sure that you are working with your buyers so that they understand now's a good time for them to buy investment properties, because that is happening right now.
Real quick thing, just noticed from Jill that NBS Highway is sending out an alert to lock. And
yeah, well, I mean, most days are starting with a let's try and float, and then it's like womp. And so I'm gonna guess that the 20-year auction today did not go well. And again, we have the Fed meeting right now, and so it's just volatile right now. So you just have to stay on your game. I mean, we have such a huge improvement in treasury prices and MBS prices. It's crazy. So it's gotten better, and this is how it goes. It's going to be volatile for the foreseeable future. I mean, it always feels like it's volatile, doesn't it? I mean,
no, it's just lately really volatile.
That I don't think that's true. I think if we go back historically, there's always some sort of there's something going on usually. I mean, very rarely do we stay at the same rate for more than 3 days in a row, right? Exact same rate? No. Okay, so when we are looking at what we should be doing going forward, Goran, what you're seeing in the market that is working for LOs, tell us, where should LOs start and what should we be shooting towards? And we know that it's about tracking. We know it's about using a good system like yours. So tell us what to do first.
So the first thing
in your ultimate wisdom.
Oh yeah, so thank you. Wow, what an intro. I'm bound to deliver on that one. Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, well, I'm gonna tone it down a little bit, just focus on the code. Yeah, I think the most important thing is consistency. To be able to be consistent, for that, you have to increase your volume of work that you're doing and be able to track that. And if you know how to do that, that's great. If you don't know how to do that, you need to get my software, get trained, get your organization to help you implement it. Talk to your marketing people so they can send out marketing stuff for you. Answer your text messages. Invest in yourself and your organization and your kind of future over the next few months. If interest rates go down and there's again he cracks, your Powell cracks, and another party starts, great. But if it doesn't, it's good to be prepared. So that would be my advice: is talk to your team, talk to your branch manager, amongst yourselves, to your company, and say, how do I manage my desk from intake flow all the way to the end? Get me trained, show me. And each branch manager needs to look at their loan officers. And I know circumstances are different. There's a lot of independence. So it doesn't have to be as an oversight, but it can be as mentoring, as tutoring, to bring up everybody's performance. So that would be be consistent in using a tool, and be sure that they can explain how that tool will work for you, not as a feature, but as an entire system. From the time you either get a referral from your referral partner or your neighbor, or you purchase that lead from Zillow, until they are in that post-close world, what are the tools that you're doing that engage you and the software to become more proficient and better than your competitors? That would be the kind of the forward looking what to do.
I like that. And then how do our audience find you?
So our website is www.cimmaron, CIMMARON software.com. Audrey, I don't know if you'll put in some contact info at the end and all of that.
We'll put your contact information in the embedded in
Slide notes or
YouTube. Yes.
Okay.
And if anyone has any questions about how to get a hold of you,
Repeat that one more time.
we're going to put his number on the bathroom wall. It'll be very accessible.
That's how.
What's the website again?
Cimmaron, CIMMARON, CimmaronSoftware.com, www.cimmaronsoftware.com. And you'll send us contact us. One of the salespeople will contact you back. They'll talk to you. If you're a single user, they might kind of tell you what to expect, and kind of we have some certain user minimums, but that way at least you can kind of see where your company ought to be going. If you're a branch manager, or if you're in the kind of on enterprise level, we can talk about what are these steps that go through getting you onboarded, imported data, setting up your leads, all of that stuff over the next 30 days to maybe 6 months, depending on how many, if you have hundreds of users, how that will work. So
yeah,
that's
it's important, guys. We have to embrace this. I know that this makes your head want you want to, your head explode a little bit, but it's important. And so we have some really good people coming up. We have Dr. Elliot Eisenberg, one of our favorite economists. I was going to say our favorite economist, but now we have Dr. Lawrence Yoon too, who's another economist. But we love Dr. Eisenberg and all his knowledge, and it'll be really great to have him next week. The week after that, we have Megan Anderson with MBS Highway. And then who do we have on April 11th? We have Mr. Mark McArdle with the CFPB. So that's always fascinating to hear directly from our main PUBA regulator, and make sure that they get our input too. It's really important. And that one, we will probably not be posting the recording. We'll run it by them and see if it's okay, but they don't usually allow that.
Yeah.
So we'll tune in
That's
live.
the one you want to watch live.
Yeah, you'll have to watch that one live. So anyway, with that, Goran, we want to thank you so very much for being here today. It was a pleasure.
Audrey, thank you. Pleasure was all mine. Enjoyed talking to you, and it was great meeting you, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Heard tons about you.
Yeah. I told them to begin with, none of it was good. Anyway, that's not true. All right. Well, have a wonderful week, everyone. Just keep on your toes. It'll be fine. And mwah. We'll see you next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Have a great week. Bye.
Thank you, audience. Bye.